story is told about St. Patrick. St. Patrick, I guess most of us are familiar with him, and that he went around about Ireland killing snakes, driving them out of Ireland. He also went about the countryside baptizing people. It was quite the ceremony, always. They went through the water. They processed on dry land. One of these stories had to do with a king. The king was walking beside him, and as they processed in this ceremony of baptism, somehow the staff that St. Patrick was carrying, he leaned on it a little too hard, and it went through the king's foot. The king said nothing at all. At the end of this ceremony, St. Patrick asked, "What happened? What? There's so much blood. What happened?" The king explained what had happened to him, and he said, "Why didn't you say anything? Why did you suffer in silence?" The king said, "I thought that was part of the ceremony." Too often, I think we as Christians believe that suffering is what is intended for us, day in and day out. That we're in the midst of problems of grief, of loss, of sadness, and that's where we need to be, and we need to buck up and tough it out as Christians. Jesus Christ said in John 10:10, "I come that you might have life and have it abundantly." This means stepping forth out of that negativity. Stepping forth, yes, being present and moving through our grief, moving through our hard times, but also knowing that in the midst of our grief is the divine essence of God, the very presence that Jesus Christ held within himself and exuded so perfectly. He knew this. There's so many stories. We have friends, stories that we can tell of people that have made it through, people that have walked those lines, people that have been on the edge, people that have lost children even, that while they don't rejoice in the loss, that's not what this means. They find the positive of God's presence in the midst of everything. It's so much easier for us to fall into the negativity of society. That's what we're taught to do. That's what media tells us to do. Shows us we're pros at this. But what Paul is telling us is to step out of our earthly selves into that divine consciousness where we find the very presence of God. Remember the story that I started with of Baal Shem Tov. As you recall, he had forgotten everything. When he saw the scribe's despair, he tried to pep up, and he said, "You know what, don't give up. All is not lost. We have one thing left, one thing. You're here. You can save us." The scribe looked shocked. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to do because he too had forgotten everything. "Master, I don't remember anything either." He said, "Surely you must remember one lesson, one word of wisdom that I taught you. Surely." No, I don't. I don't remember anything at all except for. Well, what are you waiting for except for what? The Aleph Bet, or the alphabet. "Well, then what is wrong with you?" shouted the master. "Begin. Just start from the beginning. Start wherever you are. We need the basic foundation. Start it." And that's what the scribe did. Aleph, Bet, Dalet, Gimel. He said it again. Aleph, Bet, Dalet, Gimel. The master began chanting it with him, first slowly, and then their voices united, and they got louder and louder. And they knew that something was happening, because within this basic foundation, the first 4 letters of that Hebrew alphabet were the secrets of the universe. Sometimes that's all we need. Sometimes that's all we need, is to encourage others, just to remember the basic. As Meister Eckhart would say, the thank you, the prayer of thanksgiving to God. Just say thank you. Begin with that. That's where we are today. That's where Paul is in our midst, encouraging encouraging us, offering that prayer of thanksgiving to God, offering a prayer of thanksgiving and of resurrection to each other. The good news for today can be summed up in Lamentations 3, verses 21 through 24. My favorite verse. The steadfast love of God never ceases. God's mercies are new every morning. Great is God's faithfulness.